Hi guys, and what's up? It's Charla from That Girl Cooks Healthy. So today I'm going to show you how to make these delicious Jamaican style liver and onions. These are the ingredients that you're going to need. You're going to need some liver. I'm using organic chicken liver, but you can use beef liver if you want to. The most important aspect is that you are using liver that is organic. I have some hot water. I have some soy sauce, or soy sauce, some people call it. I have oyster sauce, some all-purpose seasoning, some hot sauce, tomato paste, some onions, garlic and ginger, pimento berries, thyme, and I also have some browning as well, and I also have salt and pepper that I'm going to use, but I'll add that more towards the end. The first thing you need to do is remove the membrane, but I already had my butcher chop the liver, so I don't need to do that. Once you do that and you remove the membrane, you need to put some either vinegar, or some people use milk, but I like to use vinegar and water and soak it for up to 2 hours. So once you have soaked the liver, it's time to wash off in my case I'm using vinegar, so get my words out. I'm using vinegar, so I need to rinse off the vinegar water, and I'm just going to do that in the sink. By the way guys, I have a cold, or should I say I'm getting over a cold right now, so if I sound off or a little bit different, it's because I'm just getting over this cold. So yes, anyway, as I was saying, you just need to rinse off the liver. I like to just do that. I start with the bowl, and then I move from the bowl to the colander, and that just is an easier way to wash the liver, because you're not catching the water, you're just making it go directly down the drain, because the colander will do the work for you. So you want to just make sure that you completely rinse off your liver, because you've left it to soak as well. The liver is going to be more tender, as well as eliminate all the nastiness that you don't want to be eating as well. As I said, my liver is already chopped up, but I do recommend that you get organic liver. Try to get it chopped up from the butcher, because you're going to have to remove the membrane yourself, or just move the membrane. It's really easy. So whichever one you do, it's up to you really. It doesn't really matter. So no right or wrong. Just make sure that you have organic liver and that you rinse it off and soak it too. So I've washed the liver, I've dried the liver. It's time to season that liver. So now I'm just going to add some of the ingredients that I need to make this recipe. So I'm just going to add my all-purpose seasoning, the garlic, the oyster sauce and the soy sauce. The oyster and the soy sauce is optional. I'm also going to add my browning as well. The browning that I'm using is homemade browning. I like to make my own browning, but if you're using the store-bought browning, you need to use less than what I'm using. So you need about a teaspoon for this recipe. I go a bit heavier because the homemade browning is not as concentrated and nowhere near as bitter as the one in the store, which is why I like to make my own. So whichever one you use, you just need to be mindful of how much you're using, depending on whether it's my version or if it is the store-bought version. And once you add all of those ingredients, you just need to use your hands. You can put gloves on if you want to, and you just want to work all of those ingredients in, so you make a bit of a wet rub for your liver. And then you need to just set it aside. You don't need to set it aside for very long, just until you're ready to sear the meat. You don't need to leave it overnight. It can just be cooked straight away. Just put it aside and just get it ready to sear. So now we're going to add some olive oil to our frying pan, and we want that olive oil to be extremely hot because we're searing the meat and we don't want the meat texture to be too tough, or we don't want it, we want it to be nice and tender. We need the oil to be hot. So what I do is I just hover my hand over the pan, and once I hover the hand over the pan, it's just to determine when it's hot. You'll feel the heat raise, so you know that it's ready to move on to the next step where you can start to sear the meat. So now I'm good to go. So what I'm going to do now is add my liver to the frying pan, and I'm going to sear the meat. Now it's very important to note that the only thing I'm doing here is searing the meat. I'm not cooking it in its entirety. I just want both sides of the meat to be browned, so it has some color and it also locks in the flavor. It should take no more than a few minutes to do this. You just want to just turn the meat back and forth for a few minutes. Make sure that it has touched the oil and that both sides are seared. You'll see that the color of the meat will change as well, and you also will notice that it'll extract its own juices as well. So once the meat extracts its own juices, that's when you know that you're ready to move on to the next step. So that's another clue as well. So now that the meat has been seared, I'm just going to remove it from the saucepan because I don't want it to cook any further. I'm going to cook it when I make the gravy for it. So I just remove all of the liver, and then once I remove all of the liver, I'm also going to reserve the juices as well, because the juices is going to form as part of the gravy as well. It has a lot of flavor, so you don't want to lose it. You want to keep it, make it and form your gravy. So definitely save it. If you don't want to save it, it's up to you, but I recommend saving it because you'll get some really nice flavor just from browning the meat and extracting the juice. So now it's time to make the gravy for the liver. As you can see, I just wiped out the pan before I moved on to adding more olive oil. You don't need a lot, you just need enough what you're doing now is you're going to sear the onion and the garlic, and you want to just sear it until it's soft and translucent. I like to use a lot of onion in my liver and gravy recipes. Some people might use more than what I'm using, but to me, I feel what I'm using is a lot. I feel it's a star of the show as well as the liver. But if you don't want to add that much onions, I use like a large onion for this recipe, a really big one. If you want to just use a small onion, because not everybody likes too much onion in the liver, it's up to you really what you want to do. So just saute it, and then we're going to move on to adding the rest of the ingredients. So now that the onions are nice and soft, it's time to move on to adding the pimento berries, and I'm also going to add the sprigs of thyme as well. And once I just stir that a few times, I'm just going to add my tomato paste and my hot sauce as well. How much hot sauce you use is up to you. I only use a small amount to give it a nice little kick, but you can add a lot more if you want to. You can do it towards the end, after you've made the gravy, to determine whether you want it hot, or you can just add more at the time as well. So now I'm going to add the liquid to the pan. So I'm going to add just the juice that was reserved from the meat. So I'm just going to pour that in now. And as you can see, it's quite a lot that it's extracted there. So that will give you a really nice flavor to start with. And then I'm just going to top it up by adding hot water. You want to add hot water because that's going to keep the temperature levels constant. You don't really want to add cold water because that will set you back. So the hotter the water, the quicker it will be to make the gravy. Whenever I'm doing a stew or if I'm doing curry, I always add hot water, never add cold unless the recipe states that I need to. You know, if it's a traditional recipe that you add cold, but you want to add hot. And the amount of water that you add to make the gravy is really subjective to the amount of meat. So what I do is I start off by just adding a small amount of water, and once I leave it to simmer, if it's too thick, I then thin it out. So you really just need to just keep a watchful eye on the gravy and its thickness, and then you add accordingly. But you don't want to get too carried away by adding too much water because it will dilute the taste as well. So just leave it now just to simmer for about say 5 minutes or 10 minutes, just so the gravy can thicken and form. So this is what the gravy looks like now. It's nice and thick and it is full of flavor. So we're finally just going to add the liver, and we add the liver last because we don't want the liver to overcook. That is the secret to making really good tasting liver. You want to add the liver, or at least cook the liver for enough time that it's cooked through, but at the same time don't overcook it. Don't treat it like you're making like brown stew chicken or some stew beef. You just want to treat it like liver, and because it is liver. And the key to making a good liver recipe is just to cook it until it is tender. So you don't want to go over something like 10 minutes. You just want to leave it to simmer. I leave mine to simmer for just up to 10 minutes, but I usually in the midst of cooking it, I'll do a quick taste test, and once it's tender, I remove it from the pan. So this is my liver after several minutes. As I said before, I do not cook my liver for very, very long. It's just enough to make it tender and to make sure it's thoroughly cooked through. Please do not try and cook this for like 50 minutes, 60 minutes. Under 10 minutes should be enough, if you've providing that you have sealed it first, you've done the steps that I have included, then it should be cooked through. There's no reason why you need to go 20 minutes. So this is what it looks like, guys. It's nice and tender and flavoursome. You must try it. So this is my Jamaican liver and onions recipe, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video, and please make sure that you make this delicious recipe as well. And that's me out.